Nearly 8 years in the making, the Detectorists Institute and Foundation is now open. Whether you're a detectorist, mudlark, archaeologist or landowner, the DIF is a professional body and charity welcoming members worldwide. In building bridges between archaeologists and detectorists, one key motivator we have between us is a love of the past. And certainly this rich and varied historical landscape that we have to work within gives us an opportunity really to work together and realise that the dating evidence that we can provide can sometimes be the key to really evaluating and defining new archaeological sites.
The relationship between detectorists and archaeologists has often been strained, with archaeologists describing the hobby of metal detecting as a destructive practice. In response, detectorists question why archaeologists frequently strip topsoil from archaeological sites. This issue leads detectorists to believe that both sides agree that finds within the topsoil and plough soil horizon have lost any contextualized relationship to the underlying archaeology.
On this site, we conducted a thorough detecting survey of the plough soil before starting with the mechanical excavator. However, such practices are rare in most archaeological excavations, which is why the DIF strongly promotes this as standard practice.
Field walking has been crucial in archaeology because it enables the systematic surveying of landscapes to discover and map surface artifacts, providing invaluable insights into past human activities and settlement patterns. If field walking has been effectively used for more than 100 years to identify past human settlements, how credible is the claim that finds from metal detecting are irrelevant to buried archaeology?
In 2017, we put on a course at the University of Oxford, Metal Detecting for Archaeological Projects. This was looking into methodologies, standards and guidance, and how we actually worked with archaeologists.
Detectorists likely make up the largest community engaged in a form of archaeology, yet the course held at Rewley House, Oxford, was the UK's first ever educational course designed specifically for detectorists.
But what of the hobby itself? Some detectorists were saying, why do we need any education? And why do we need to be taught how to dig holes? Well, the 2017 Code of Practice talks about being careful not to damage the archaeological value of the land and earthworks. And it goes on to say to avoid damaging stratified archaeological deposits. What does that mean? How do we as detectorists with a spade understand whether we're actually damaging stratified deposits? And actually, if we're targeting the archaeological record of a site, is that not in itself damaging the actual archaeological value of land?
In 1980, the Stop Taking Our Past campaign was launched, accompanied by a cross-section diagram. This diagram explained how digging deep holes can damage the contextual relationship between stratified deposits and the detectorists' target.
The DIF course, which went on to win the prestigious Archaeological Training Forum Awards, covered the important subject of stratigraphy, recording and context. Looking back at the 1980s clash between archaeologists and detectorists, which deepened the rift between the two parties, it's clear that there was a missed opportunity to create a viable educational approach that could have helped build bridges. One thing that hasn't changed over the past 45 years is that we, as detectorists, routinely find and dig those deep signals, yet a best practice approach has still not been developed. The metal detector has been one of the most underutilised of archaeological tools. And over the years I've been fortunate to work on lots of different archaeological sites. From Saxon cemeteries to medieval castles, to Knight's Hospitaller through to War of the Roses battlefields. But there is much more work that we've got to do to see metal detecting embedded into professional practice. Well, there's one thing for sure, is that being part of Time Team, you get some wonderful and beautiful places to detect. This is one of these predicaments where I really don't know how to deal with. It's an issue I don't really know how to deal with because it's happened so many times before. What do you do with a deep signal? Because we all as detectorists get deep signals, and we know that we shouldn't then dig through the topsoil into the subsoil, and the sort of potential there to damage the archaeological record. But of course, we don't know what that signal is, and in many cases you need to actually dig down to find out whether it's a signal of any sort of historical potential, really. Because you can't ring up an archaeologist every time you get a deep signal. So this is where we've got such a really great signal. And as you can see, I've tried to make sure that I'm not coming down straight on top of this, because that's where you could potentially do some damage. So trying to sort of come from the sides of the signal and trying to come down in layers, working with a trowel to make sure that there's nothing you're going to damage here.
In working with archaeologists, depending on the type and scale of the project and a predetermined discard policy, detectorists may be required to target non-ferrous materials, or in some instances, to refrain from using discrimination and retrieve all targets.
In this instance, the signal turned out to be the blade of a fairly recent scythe, which reminds me of a 30-minute excavation of a very large and quite modern harness buckle at the Corfe Castle project. But whether you are searching your favourite permission, or as in these cases, the important historical landscapes at Corfe Castle and Sutton Hoo, How we approach a deep signal will make all the difference on that day when it really matters. On our first day at Sutton Hoo, marking the start of our field work, I laid out the rope grid for an intensive search area across the main trench. And as we filmed my first sweep of the area, amongst all these scattered tent pegs, I discovered what was undoubtedly the most perfect signal. And this day marked the beginning of what became one of the longest excavations of a metal detectorist target. I'm Keith Westcott and we're here today at Sutton Hoo, and I'm the time team detecting team manager.